Today is the last day, not only with us, but at ESPN for someone who's been here just about as long as we have. He worked on our show 15 years ago and then came back in the last year to work with us as our social media director, Jason Romano. And the one thing I will say about him, of the many that you could, he is the one thing in life that we need more of. He is a genuinely nice person.
Yes, he is.
And he's done a great job for us over the years.
He's a good guy. He's done a great job for us. He will be missed. There's no doubt about it.
And Jason Romano from Ravenna, we should point that out. We can localize this story. And now, as of Friday, the former producer of Mike and Mikey joins us here on Big Board Sports after nearly 2 decades at working for and at ESPN. Good morning, Jason. Roger Weiland, Zach By on ESPN Radio in Albany.
Good morning, Roger. Good morning, Zach. How are you guys today?
Good.
Doing great, man.
Good. And, boy, that must have felt good Friday with such high praise from Mike and Mike in the national spotlight for you.
It was overwhelming, to be honest with you, Roger. We did our show Friday. It was the last show. I knew it was going to be my last day there. And, it's 4 hours of radio and television in the morning. It's a long show. And it's basically 9:52. So you're looking at like a minute and a half left in the show. And I was just kind of like, all right, here we go, end of the show. And then they basically told me, put a camera on Jason, and I turn around, and there they go. And it was really just overwhelming and wonderful, great to hear. They did not have to do that, and I'm very thankful for my time there, but also very thankful for the kind words they had to say.
Yeah, well, it's always nice to know when you leave a place that you made your mark, and you obviously made your mark on what you have done with Mike and Mike and everything else you've been doing since day one, working for ESPN. So I got to ask you, Jason, what is next for you? Why did you leave, and what do you have lined up?
Well, it's a little bit of a mixture of things. So for the last few years, my faith is very important to me, Roger, as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus, and that's been very important to me. And over the last couple of years, I felt sort of a nudge, a tug, whatever you want to call it, in my heart, in my spirit, to kind of do more for the Lord. And so I didn't know what that meant. I've always been active in my church. I've always been kind of a church-going guy the last 20 years or so, my family, my wife, my daughter. And an opportunity came up recently to go to work and align with a sports and faith ministry. And it really just kind of opened my eyes and made sense. A lot of it kind of came together, over the last couple months. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go work for a faith and sports ministry. But I've also wanted to kind of dive into my own thing. So, speaking has been something that I've been enjoying very much over the last maybe 2 years, sharing my story, sharing my testimony, sharing stories of my time at ESPN, sharing stories of faith, sharing stories of encouragement. And so I've really enjoyed that. I got a chance last year to come back to Albany and to Troy and speak to the LaSalle athletics team and the kids that play sports at LaSalle, and I really enjoyed that. And so doing more of that is something I'd like to start doing more of. And then also consulting. I've had a lot of experiences at ESPN in producing, in radio and television, digital, social media, and I really would like to just kind of bring that knowledge and that expertise and to help other people grow their businesses and their knowledge in that realm. So that's kind of where I am right now. That could change in 6 months, but right now that's where I'm thinking.
Well, it sounds like that nudge that you're talking about, you've got to go with it. And it sounds like you're in a good place mentally, that you're making the right decision here. And sometimes it just works out that way. But I'm sure you're going to miss what you're leaving behind, right? And you're going to maybe you won't miss the early morning hours that you're in there. But what are you going to miss most about ESPN and working with Mike and Mike?
Well, listen, I leave ESPN with nothing but good memories. I leave there with nothing but, just grateful moments and times that I spent there. I'm going to miss the people. I certainly won't miss getting up at 3 in the morning, like you said, but I'll miss the people. I'll miss the talent. When you work with people like Bob Lee and Stuart Scott and Chris Berman and Mike and Trey Wingo, like those are people that I worked with over my career. Like they're the top of the top. They're the best. And so you miss working with talent like that for sure. But then it's the people in the trenches. It's the producers, the behind-the-scenes people that are in their day-to-day grinding, working tirelessly hours upon hours. And, nobody really sees that. You guys know, you're in the business. You know how important it is to be behind the scenes. Those guys are the nuts and bolts. Those guys make or break a lot of times the shows that we do. And so I'll miss being in the trenches with those guys for sure. I mean, that's to be at ESPN is the pinnacle of sports for sure, but that's the kind of daily grind that people don't see, and I don't even know if they fully appreciate it. So I'll definitely miss that for sure.
Jason, who was one guy that you encountered over your nearly 2 decades? I think it was 17 years, I think was the what was the total. In your 17 years, who was one guy that you encountered or worked with or had a chance to meet that, kind of stopped you in your tracks and said, wow, I was just shaking hands and working with blank?
Well, the very first day I started at ESPN, I met Dan Patrick. And Dan was obviously did radio and television for ESPN for a very long time, and now he's doing work for NBC and doing his own radio show. But Dan Patrick, when I met him, I was 26 when I started at ESPN, and the first day I came in there and I was kind of being shown around the radio studio. I started my career at ESPN Radio, and there's Dan Patrick with Rob Dibble getting ready to do his radio show, and I just stopped. I almost kind of went humming, like I didn't know what to say, because when I was 16, 17, 18, all the way up into my early to mid-20s, the Big Show with Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann was the show in sports. That was the must-see, tune-in show on Sunday nights on SportsCenter. And for me to be working with him and being in the same, place of employment with him was unreal. And over the years, there's been so many different people. I think when I spent the day with Darryl Strawberry, probably 2009, I think that was one of the greatest days of my life, because Darryl Strawberry was my sports hero as a kid. And I wanted to be him when I was, 13 years old. And I love the Mets. I'm still a Mets fan today. And to be able to spend the day with him at ESPN and put him on all of our different shows and walk him around what we call the car wash, which I know you guys are aware of, that was just awesome. So that day for me was one of my best days at ESPN for sure.
Well, Jason, we're certainly proud of you. Ravenna guy, local. Watched a lot of local sports here in the Capital Region, and we'll definitely be back in touch with you. And I hope that your next venture goes as well as what you've been able to do here for the last couple of decades at ESPN.
Roger, thanks so much. You know how much I admire you guys. I mean, I told you when I was on with you a few months ago how much I admired you and watched you growing up, and I'm 518 bled and born, and I appreciate this. And anytime I can come on with you guys or help you guys, please let me know. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate a few minutes. Thanks, guys. Jason Romano, former producer of Mike and Mike. What an opportunity he had at ESPN, and he's got another opportunity knocking, and he feels like that's the direction he wants to go with his life right now. And I think he's making the right move. He's a guy you hear, you can just tell, right? You just kind of know, he feels really good, even though it's hard to leave ESPN. I think you could tell there's a vibe in his voice that he feels really good about the decision.
Yeah, that was really cool for me to hear, because, here's a guy who is at the pinnacle of his chosen profession. He's a professional producer at the highest level, and he's choosing to leave that for less money and less attention and exposure for something that he has a burden for. And whether you agree with what he's doing or not is totally beside the point. You have to respect from a human level that he is putting aside a lot of the things that we all value to chase something else. And I commend it at the highest level.
No doubt. Good luck to Ravenna product Jason Romano in his next venture, and we thank him for popping on here on a Monday morning on Big Board Sports.